Well, I'm the notorious, now minus $5 DC Oakes. My name is Daniel Chessman Oakes, and my friends and family call me Chess, and Sarah call me DC most of the time, so I don't know what that puts you at, Sarah. But I was born in Carthage, Maine in April 23 of 1825. So if you think I look old, I do. I'm 201 years old today. Yeah, I currently live up at Riverside Cemetery, if you know where that is. But anyway, I didn't get really very familiar with Maine because I only was there 3 years, and then we moved to Gallon, Ohio, and we were there for about 7 years, and about 4 years into that, my mother passed away, and my dad Jonas really had a hard time with her passing, and decided he was known as sort of a jack of all trades as well, or all trades. He was also known as a jack of all trades as well. And he was, by schooling, he was a surveyor and a part-time mason. Not that he was a mason, but he was in the masonry business. But he decided we were going to move when I was 10 to LaGrange, Indiana on a farm. Now he knew a lot about surveying and a lot about masonry. He wasn't much of a farmer. And 2 years later, he found a lady over in western Iowa that he married, and he moved with Nancy, that woman, over to where she lived, what was Glenwood, Iowa, which is right south of Omaha and Council Bluffs, on the kind of the southwest corner of Iowa, north of a town called Plattsmouth. Anyway, I started school when we moved again, and we moved to DeWitt, Iowa, which is 18 miles sort of west of what Davenport and Bettendorf are today. And I started working. I was 13 years of old, and I started clerking in a mercantile company. And I saved my money, and when I was 19, I bought a plot on the corner of downtown DeWitt, which wasn't very big and still isn't very big. But I built and opened a grocery mercantile store there and did very well. But I was always looking for something different and better to do. And I had read in a paper that Plattsmouth in Mill County, Iowa, was building a new county seat. And they were looking for a surveyor and a mason person. And they paid pretty well. So I went over there, and Dad had taught me enough that I was able to make some money over there, and they liked me as a surveyor, and I thought that was very good. And I started saving my money, and then I met this woman, Olive Martin. Now, if you go back into the 1920s and the 1950s, everybody was related to everybody else, it seemed like. And I met this woman, Olive Martin, who was really a nice lady. And I got real fond of her. She got fond of me. We thought alike. And she was a very intelligent lady. And we started looking around where she lived, which is in the Plattsmouth area. And we decided to get married and go into the development business. So we were talking about it, and then it was 1848, and we heard rumors about California, and you could make money. And I decided to go, and a friend of mine, Abe Walrud, went with me. We didn't have any real money to get out there, so we started selling shares in a company we called the Sacramento Mining Company. And the people who couldn't go bought shares of what we were going to, and we didn't know where we were going to. But we left in Council Bluffs in early '49, and we followed the Platte River all the way out to Riverton, Wyoming. And then we ran into a really forested area, and we dropped down the side of that forested area and got down to a Great Salt Lake. We stayed on the north side of that and then went over the Pueblo Mountains up into what was Oregon Territory. And then we dropped back down and came into what was California at that time, into towards Sacramento, into what's known as the Feather River area. And there's 3 rivers there of the Feather River Valley. There's the lower Feather, there's the middle Feather, and there's the upper Feather. And we met a guy by the name of A.R. Cotton. He was very famous because he had a lot of claims in California. And he said, if you two want to pan for gold and do some placer mining here on the Middle Fork, he said, you're welcome to do that, he said. If you want to do that, he said, I won't charge you anything. He said, just be lucky and good luck. Well, we were there 9 months, and we were quite lucky. We found quite a bit of gold, and we said, hey, we're going back, and we're going back to where we were. Me and my wife, we're gonna start a development company, and we're gonna build in the north side of Plattsmouth, Iowa. So we started to go back, and one of the guys said, you know, that was really rough what you guys went through coming out here. He said, you got enough money now, why don't you get on a ship, buy a ticket on a ship that goes from Sacramento down to Los Angeles. And he said, then you can cut up through Nevada, he said, and it's a much easier trail. It's not bad in the wintertime, and you could go up and hit the Platte River and go right home. And that was when I was about to experience what I thought was my first death. We got, and believe it or not, we got on a paddle wheel. Now, I didn't know there was a paddle wheel in the Pacific, but there was one that was supposedly supposed to stay fairly close to shore. And we got on that, and wouldn't you know, Abe and I are on that. We were supposed to take, it was supposed to take 2 to 2.5 days to get to Los Angeles. We got out where we could barely see shore anymore, and we had a problem with the steam engine, and the paddle stopped. And we kept drifting out deeper into the Pacific Ocean, and days turned into a week, and it started getting longer. We ran out of food, and finally we spotted a ship from Denmark, and we tried to signal them. They didn't come, and then Dad had taught me an old fraternal Mason sign of distress, and we showed that sign to the. I don't know now how we did that, because the sign is a triangle in red about this big, and I suppose we actually made that on something so they could see it from the Denver ship, and it took them 2 days to get to us, but and when they got to us, we got the steam engine running again, and we started drifting closer to shore, and we made it to Los Angeles. And that's kind of a long story, but we actually thought we were going to die on that trip. But I got back, and after our trip back through Nevada, back into Plattsmouth, and I got back after we paid off the people who had who had invested in the Sacramento Mining Company, I got back with about $3,000. And I went up to DeWitt, where I still had my store, and I sold that for $1,500, and that gave me $4,500, which doesn't sound like a lot of money today, but it would be 1.4 million today, 1.3 million, excuse me. Anyway, we went back and we bought some plots in North Plattsmouth, and we started building a city that we call Pacific City. And we started selling buildings. We got a newspaper in that called themselves the Pacific City Herald, and we got a doctor in. We got a lawyer in. We got a saloon in, and we kept building. It was taking us about $400 to $500 to build a building, and like most developers, we got ahead of ourselves. And we quickly seemed to run out of the $4,500 that we brought back. And so Olive and I were looking for where we could get more money. And this got early into the 1858. And we had heard rumors from some of the people, particularly the Indians, that there was groups of people coming in to Colorado because they were finding glittering things in the stream that sounded very much to me like, well, maybe we could go and find gold in Colorado. It would give us some more money. And so we went out and we followed the Platte River again, and then we cut over on, if you're familiar with the old Smoky Hill Trail there's a trail that comes into it called the Old Trappers Trail that comes down through Wyoming. And we took that down and we dropped down into a place in October of 1858 called, well, it wasn't called anything at that time, but it became known as Russellville. And we found a group there that was led by a man by the name of William Green Russell and his brother Oliver. There were 13 of them, and they had been there for about a week, and they were finding gold in the stream there. And so Abe started looking for gold. We went out with 3 other people from Council Bluffs or Plattsmouth. Let's see, there was a guy by the name of William Griffith. There was a guy by the name of Jim Patskoff and Charles Miles, and they are all finding some gold. And interestingly enough, I wasn't fascinated by the gold. What I was fascinated were all of these trees. There's trees all over the place. And I said to one of the guys from Green Russell's group, I said, boy, this would be a great place to go into the lumber business, because if we keep finding gold, this is going to grow. And he said, that's a good idea. And so all of the people that came over with me into Colorado decided to stay there. And I went back to Council Bluffs and bought a sawmill, a steam sawmill. And a friend of mine that I knew from DeWitt, Iowa, his name was Doc Street. He helped me, and we brought that thing back. We pulled it back. We didn't really have much trouble. We got stopped by a few Indians, but we had learned to trade with them, and they were friendly at the time. So we bought that steam engine back, or that steam sawmill back, and we were just coming into Colorado, and we saw a group camping, and we stopped there. Now, what I didn't tell you is that when I was with Russell's group, he had a guy by the name of Lewis Turney. And he had written a book about finding gold in Colorado. And he said, would you take this back when you go back looking for a sawmill and get it published? And I read it and I thought, well, this is pretty good. Would you mind if I added a route to it, you know, how people get here? And he said, I know a couple of routes now, how they can get here, and I think I can add to the book. He says, go right ahead and do that. So I did, and when I got back and at Plattsmouth and got the mill, I had given that to the Pacific newspaper, the Pacific City Herald it was called, and they published the book and got it distributed eastward. Well, it sold like wildfire, and a lot of people bought the book, and that's what got a lot of people thinking about the gold rush. And that's when there were wagon trains coming in to Colorado, as well as people pushing wheelbarrows, walking in walking with nothing more than a sack over their bag. And we had 100,000 people come into Douglas County. And they didn't stay long at Russellville. Green didn't, because the gold petered out pretty fast. And they wound up and followed the river and went up to what is today Commerce Park and found gold there. And they were there for quite some time, and then they moved on up into, into the Central City area, what it is Central City area now. And ultimately that caused the gold discovery of the mineral run that runs diagonally across Colorado and goes down through Idaho Springs. But anyway, we're bringing, Doc Street and I were bringing back this sawmill, and we asked the group if we could stay overnight. We're just going to head it back. We want to go down into the Denver area. And that's when I saw it. They had a grave over there, and then on top of the grave was a sign that was painted on a buffalo skull, and it said, "Here lies the body of D.C. Oakes, the man who wrote the Pikes Peak hoax." And they said, this one guy said, if I ever met D.C. Oakes, I'd shoot him on sight. He says, nobody's finding gold. He says, most of the people are going bust. Doc and I didn't tell them our names, and we just got up early the next morning and headed down to the Smoky Hill, or the Trappers Trail, and headed into the Denver, what became the Denver area. And we set up our first sawmill up on what is called Riley's Hill. It's in Daniels Park. If any of you know where the Richardson Ranch is, which is Pretty Woman Ranch, it's right north of, it was right north of the Cherokee Ranch property.
Let's go see if we see a rainbow.
In the fall, you can still see a dilapidated cabin back there, and that's the Pretty Woman Ranch. There's a very interesting story about three women, and I got to tell you this. The pioneers and the mountain men had names for three ranches up and down the I-25 area. Down at Monument Creek, we had a woman that lived and kept her children and her animals inside the house.
Sometimes you get
She was known as Dirty Woman.
There's not a rainbow right
Dirty
now.
Woman Ranch. And if you go down, there's a Dirty Woman Creek, today named after
We
her.
didn't see one.
Then they got up to this lady's place, and they called her this was the Clever Woman Ranch. And then they got up to the Richardson Ranch up by the sawmill, and I guess Mrs. Richardson was quite comely, and anyway, she became the Pretty Woman Ranch. So that's the way the three woman ranches got named. But we did a really good business of cutting some trees, which is some of the area is actually in that we got trees from from the southern area of Highlands Ranch, kind of in the outback area of the southern side that isn't built with houses. It's actually owned by Highlands Ranch Metro. But it's a pretty rough area. They got wells back there, and they've got They open it up, I think, for elk hunting during the year and that kind of thing. But anyway, we were doing really well. Some of the first houses in Auraria were built with Oakes lumber coming out of the Oakes mill. First mill in Colorado, actually, that was brought in, and it was steam driven, and we sawed quite a bit of lumber up until into the early 60s. We had a cloudburst, and they kind of referred to that, when you hear the 1965 flood, they refer to it as the 100-year flood. Well, back in the early 1860s, they had this cloudburst, and I lost my first sawmill. We found parts of it, but not enough. And I said, well, I'm going back and get a second sawmill and bring it on out. And so I went back and I saw Olive. She had sold off a lot of the land in Pacific City, and she says, I'm going back with you. It's not being good being married and being a single woman here in Plattsmouth. She said, I'm going back with you regardless where you go. So she and a couple of hired hands that we picked up that wanted to go to Colorado, we picked them up and we brought the second sawmill out. Now, I didn't set it up in Daniels Park. We brought it on down and we set it up at Huntsville. Roger, there's a thing there that has got a picture of the middle of Huntsville, and it may help the people know. It's got the Coberly halfway house on it, and it's also got the second sawmill. The steam engines on one of these sawmills they were very efficient, and they would go down to East Plum Creek here and haul up by mules a 50-gallon
give it to you when you're done.
barrel of water, and that would run it for a couple of hours, Yeah. And so we set that up in the middle of what is Yogi Bear. I call it the water park anymore, but in the middle of that. But that gives you you can see Dawson Butte in the background. It's an old picture, and if you blow it up, it doesn't get very clear, but you can tell. Standing in front of the sawmill is me. I got a flat-brimmed hat on, and that was the sawmill. We did really well with the sawmill. We were bringing in trees. Amazing. We were bringing in trees in about a 7-mile radius of the sawmill, and we were paying great wages. We were paying workers and haulers $1 an hour, which was unheard of at the time. And if you happened to be a sawyer who was cutting the trees, you could make $3.50 an hour, which was pretty good money. And at our best, we were sawing 12,000 board feet of lumber a day, and most of that was shipped up to Denver. And a lot of the homes up there were building with oak lumber, and so I opened up a lumber company up there on 5th and Cherry, and I found it took a long time, or more of my time, to operate the sawmill down here in Huntsville. And at that time, we're in the middle of 1860, and the Indian situation around here looked pretty rough. You heard Roger talk about Chevington, and I had 3 good friends who helped me not only settle here, but helped me in the lumber business and really got me involved with the Indians. One was, well, I had actually 4. Olive had a cousin by the name of William Cody, and if you don't know who William Cody is, he became known as Buffalo Bill. And she knew another guy out here by the name of, who was in the Army. His name was William Laminar, and then she also had another cousin out here, Hiram Bennett. And all of those names in Colorado politics and early Denver are very, very well-known names. And anyway, they helped me get started on with the lumber company. We sold a lot of lumber, and I had started a fort in '61 that you see. Well, it's pointed off to the side from the sawmill. I started in '61, and people were calling it Oakes Folly, and it ultimately got named Lincoln Fort, which most of the forts in this country did when Lincoln was famous. And so in '64, when after Chivington hit Sand Creek, I had one of my mountain men friends, Jim Baker, said, "You got to watch Chivington," and I should have paid more attention to him, because we probably could have stopped, may have stopped Chivington, because when I opened up the lumber company there, I turned around and sold my sawmill to Ephraim Blake. And I'm not sure how long he kept it there, but I think he kept it there at least a year. But then I had built a small cabin over on the sort of the northwest end of Hunt Mountain over here for Olive and I to live in. And so I said, this is crazy running back and forth to this house. So three doors down from the lumber company, I built a house for us. And Olive and I pretty well moved away from Huntsville at that time. And then a guy by the name of Gilpin, he was working for the first territorial governor, John Evans, and Evans was looking at trying to keep law and order, and they hired me as a vigilante, and that's when I really moved out of the lumber business, ultimately sold the lumber business, built another house for Olive on 274 Curtis, and she and the girls lived there. And then after I became a vigilante, I did that for 2 years. I didn't really know. I knew the marshal at that time, but our paths didn't cross very much. And we just had common sense laws. If we thought it wasn't, if I thought somebody wasn't doing what they were supposed to do, I'd usually try to calm them down. And we were pretty good at that. I always carried my friend along. My friend was my Henry percussion 50 caliber rifle, but I never shot it at any man. Never killed anybody. Shot a couple of deer at one time, but and then I got approached by the next governor to take part in the second territorial legislative meeting, where the territorial roads got formed, where the 17 counties got named in Colorado at that time. And I got asked to start working as, it went from Gilpin, and he talked to Lincoln, who talked to Andy Johnson, and I got appointed as the Indian agency, a man, and I was charged with, at that time we had lost the Cheyenne, pretty much had lost the Cheyenne and Cherokee and Arapaho, Cheyenne and Arapaho, and they had signed the Medicine Bow Treaty. Medicine Bow at that time was a Indian location in Kansas, and the Arapaho and Cherokee, they signed it, and a good share of them, other than some renegades, moved to the Oklahoma Territory about mid 1860s. We still had some around, and we certainly had some around in late 1864 at Sand Creek, but that's what they were headed for, was Oklahoma at that time. But anyway, what I when I got the agencies for the Indians, I had four people I was working with. I was working with the Northern Utes. That was Chief Jake at the time, and with the Southern Utes, which was this area, had a behemoth of a chief. He was 6'4" and weighed close to 300 pounds by the name of Chief Colorado. And he was always known as a rebel rouser. His bark was more than his bite, though. So, and then I had the Celtos down in the Four Corner area, and then the Yumpa, which is out on the western slope. That was where Ouray was, and it was with A.C. Hunt was very, very instrumental in helping me, along with Kit Carson and Jim Baker, who was a former mountain man, guy by the name of Uncle Dick Wooten, and I had one more guy. His name was Charles Stobie, and he was very helpful. They knew the English, the Indian language, and were very instrumental in several treaties that we had tried to operate, and really couldn't. The Indians weren't accepting them, and finally, this man over here got involved and set up a meeting in Washington, and the government over here at the time chose the most intelligent chief they had, and that was Ouray, and he was a very intelligent man. And we went to Washington, and shortly thereafter signed a treaty giving them the Four Corner area reservation and a good share of what is eastern Utah today. And if it wouldn't have been for Ouray, I don't know how that would have ended. But by the 1890s, the Utes were out of here. Now, during my Indian agency, and again with the help of Alexander Cameron Hunt, we built the White River Agency, which is up around Meeker. Then we built the Middle Park. We actually operated Middle Park out of Denver, but it was pretty much everything that was sort of west of Boulder today. Yeah, that was kind of we referred to it. And then I was working on the southern South Park Agency. I didn't finish that one. I had to, I was not feeling well, and we had a new agent come in and take over for me and build South Park. But that was down in the, well, I can't give you a town right now where that was at, but it was down in the valley, down in what is close to Park County today. And I got out of the Indian agency business in '86. And I went through several bouts, and I didn't make it past '87. I died at home at 274 Curtis in 1887. And if you'd like to visit me and my family, Olive and I are buried up in Riverside along with two of our daughters up there, and which is if you haven't been to Riverside, it's a very interesting cemetery. It's got a lot of the early pioneers in it up there. It's you go by and you recognize a lot of names. So that's kind of my story. And the really good thing that I think happened tonight, I was able to finally able to pay off Sarah Coberly, and hopefully won't hear that story again. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, as you know, August 1 is going to be our 150th anniversary in Colorado. They're going to have festivities here in the park.
On July 31st.
July 31st is going to be when it is. And it'll be quite interesting, I think. You'll see a lot of interesting things happening here. The railroad, the Denver and Rio Grande, came through Huntsville in September of 1871, and when it came through, all of the mail was on stagecoach before that. And then about 6 months into the railroad, that moved here into Larkspur, moved to the train. And once it moved to the train, that pretty well was the end of Huntsville. But that town that you see there, that's kind of the center of the community. There were about 15 families around that area. And that area goes kind of went all the way to Dawson Butte at the time. And during 1864, what I didn't say, they finished the fort because of the Sand Creek Massacre. And for 3 weeks, we had 13 families that came in and out of the fort. It wasn't a military fort. It was just kind of there's force in numbers. And it was a place to hide their wagons and bring their people. Never had a battle or anything there. Had some uprisings outside of the fort, but that's the story.
Thank you, Larry.
Anybody got any questions?
Well done.
No questions?
You guys did a great job.
What's our next event? I think there's a thing over at Perry Park, right?
Other than the July 31st, which they're going to have the
They've got the
flag
schedule
and
up
all
there.
that. Oh,
Yeah.
we've got some of those. If you're interested.
And
in
if you're into trivia, based
Oh
on
yeah, we've got that trivia night.
and
That's right.
that's August 6th.
August 6th.
August
yeah,
5th.
at
Yeah.
at the Spur. But the
Then we've got a September one on that sheet. That is at Perry Park, and it's for it's for the newbies in Perry Park or the forgetful oldies. And it really goes through the history of Perry Park from John Perry up to present day. And then we got one left in October, and that is about the ghost towns and extinct towns in Douglas County.
29th. October 29th.
That's October 29th. And the difference between those, ghost towns are towns that still exist in some buildings, but nobody lives there. And extinct towns are towns that were there and you can't see that they ever were there. Yeah. So,
thanks for coming out.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you much.